George is having a sale on camera gear. Frenzy.
What do we need?
A drone. Okay,
Haven't
Jane.
you got one?
Yeah, I crashed that. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Water Polo Fit Pod. I'm your co-host, Marin Lazic. Next to me tonight, wearing a suit tonight, actually. Jimmy Falzon.
Got to get dressed up for this one tonight, Marin.
Yeah. Before we start, Jimmy, I got to send a couple of apologies to a few listeners. Both of us were sort of told off for referring a pairs as a big men's game, and a few of the fans got upset that we keep mentioning them and we keep calling it a big men's game. So
Fair
apologies.
enough. Apologies. How should we refer to them?
Well, I think the people that complain will probably like to be called skillful game, maybe, or Strong, yeah.
Strong, yep.
Strong. So powerful, maybe even.
Big boned.
Big bone. So apologies for calling out or making it a big men's game. Any news from you, Jimmy? How was your week?
Not bad week. It's good to see that there's more training facilities opening up, more people in the water, and it's the middle of May and it's mid-20s.
Yeah.
How good.
Nah, it's I've seen a few posts going around of people jumping in the pool and in the gym and getting stoked on getting fit again, which is nice.
It's good.
Jimmy, today's pod, we sort of discussed it off air, and as we said a couple of weeks ago, we had our fun. We had some amazing guests on. We learned, we laughed, we bantered, but it's probably good to provide some value. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about strength conditioning and how to become a better water polo athlete, and I thought we got some good feedback. But today, I thought we talk about branding. Common thing that I hear in water polo is, it's not a professional sport. It's hard to attract sponsors and blah, 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 the same old story, which both of us disagree. I've been lucky enough to be sponsored by a few brands, and I haven't really been to Olympics or done anything really massive.
By saying not really, you haven't, have you?
No.
You've watched them.
I watched a few, yes. Just trying to be modest, But I thought we'd discuss and help people attract some sponsorships and just kind of, I guess, debunk and breaking down what you need to do to be sponsored. And in my opinion, there's not any time than now, like not better time to actually attract sponsors with social media, YouTube, whatever. So...
Yeah, you're right. And it's something that I'm obviously pretty passionate about. I work in the industry and we work quite closely with both media and brands and athletes. My day job is working at Channel 7, and we've got some pretty high profile sports that we broadcast, and my job is integrating clients into those sports, and a big part of that is working with athletes. So these, what we'll go through tonight, it's by no means a definitive list, but it's just sort of my take on what works and what athletes can be doing to make them more appealing to brands.
And I think what we should do, obviously, I'll ask you a lot of questions about it, but also on the end of the podcast, also provide some tips and things that people can do straight away. So going to give them, I guess, the next steps. And there's probably going to be a lot of opportunity to get, sponsors, even though it's financially not a great time. But as we're going to discuss today, it's not all about cash.
Yeah, it's definitely not all about cash. There's other ways that they can provide value for you and that you can provide value to them. And especially in this kind of environment that both brands are looking for that kind of thing, and athletes have got the time to be able to invest in it. Whereas if you get closer to the bigger tournaments, you start getting soaked up in training or you're overseas, and it becomes harder to commit to sponsor commitments. But also, man, something to think about at the end. I want to have a little bit of a brainstorm with you. I want to have a look at, let's have a think about a few brands and a few different categories and a few different content that we can think of. Now, I'm not saying content's the be all and end all, but I think that's something we can have a little bit of fun with at the end.
Nah, totally. And now that we've got a website, I encourage people to write in and ask questions, and it'll help us provide more valuable content as well. So, sorry, that's it. Well, let's get into it. So, Jimmy, what would be kind of, I guess, so I'm a water polo player. I played for a few years. I'm looking to get some help, support, potentially create some partnerships. Where do I start?
Well, I guess we're probably going to go through sort of six kind of topics here, 6 areas that you can kind of work on. So first of all, you've got to establish your brand. Then we'll look at brand alignment. Then we'll go into knowing your worth. Then also the next part will go into be confident about approaching brands. Then creating content, that is important. And the last thing we'll do is just never underselling the career of an athlete. So they're kind of the 6 things that we'll go into. So to start with, I reckon let's start with establishing your brand, right? And anything that you do, you've got to be authentic. You've got to find your style and tone. You've got to have a story and be proud of it, and be real, both to media and to brands. And I think that's the key to everything that you do. You've got to be authentic. Authentic's probably the word that I'll use a lot tonight. But everything that you do, you need to be authentic. You need to be real about what you do.
I guess would it be, and I'll obviously ask a lot of questions to you tonight, Jimmy, but do you, when we talk about establishing a brand, do you where do I start in a sense? Like, do I need to create a logo? Start with
I think
a platform.
The first thing I think you need to be doing is working out what your values are. And I think a worthwhile exercise for any athlete and probably any person is to go through and work out what your values are. Because if you want to be authentic, your values will be your brand's, values as well. And I think they're the pillars that you need to work on. Former Olympian Toby Jenkins did a really brilliant article on values-based decision-making probably, I think it was about 18 months ago, and I read it and it really resonated with me and made me think this is something that I now do it with brands when I'm working with them, and I think athletes and everyone should kind of be doing that to work out what their values are, because that is key to building your brand. And then from that, you do need to set up your right social platforms. You need to set up both social platforms but also digital. You should have serious athletes should have their own websites. I know when we're looking at athletes to who we should use from a talent perspective, the ones that we're more aligned to are the ones, okay, well, these guys are a bit more professional. They've got a website. They've got whether they've got a logo or not, that's, I don't know, something they can kind of build into. But
2 things on that.
Yep.
The first one, can you give us an example of some values?
Values can be anything from family to fitness to sport, basically something that you kind of pin yourself on. Integrity, they're words, but if you delve further into them, that's where you kind of build your values from.
And I guess if you define those values, or if people can see those values, then brands can kind of align themselves to those values. So
I think we'll probably get to brand alignment in a second, but I guess when you're establishing your brand, you really need to find out what your story is and what ticks for you, and that's as simple as where you come from, who your family is, what family is to you, why did you get into the sport, what your ambition is. And we talk a lot about purpose the last few weeks, and most podcasts at some point we talk about purpose. Brands want to know what your purpose is. They want to see what your mission statement is. And for an athlete, that it's pretty clear. Usually you know what your purpose is. And then you need to also work out what those next steps are after that.
Do I need to get a professional photos taken?
Yeah, I think you definitely do. And a lot of athletes now have that. Whether it's through one of the Institute of Sports, whether it's an Australian team, you're generally getting those photos taken. Often you look at the athletes in lead up to most Olympic Games. Getty will do a shoot, or one of the newspapers will do a shoot. Ask them for the rights to that, and that's something else we'll probably cover a little bit later. You got to know what your rights are and who actually owns your image, and if who can use that.
if you're not Olympian, if you just play National League, where can I source a professional photographer? Is there somewhere I can go and source those people?
Yeah, look, you and I, we know a fair few that we generally use. There's also a fair few actually in water polo. There's guys that you can approach and talk to. So if someone wrote into us, we'd be able to point them in about 4 or 5 different directions and try and work out the right person for them.
So I want to also, while we're talking about establishing or building the foundations of this, platforms. It can be a bit overwhelming. I obviously run my own business and there's so many platforms. Which platforms would you, like if you had to narrow it down, which ones are the kind of the top
good
ones?
question. And I think, again, it goes back to being authentic and what works for you. Some people will have a lifestyle that's more suited to an Instagram. Some will want to have more an opinion on something and write more on Twitter. But whatever you have, I think it's critical that your LinkedIn profile is up to date and it is really on point. LinkedIn is where I guess you start to get treated more seriously. That's where you put your professional photos up and it's more of a corporate shot, not so much in Cozzy shot on the side of the pool. Whereas sometimes, that said, they should also be in there because that's part of the brand you.
So is AJ, to talk to AJ about his TikTok performance or is he?
And you know what? TikTok, it's another form of expression of you, and that's true to him. You know, true to him is having a bit of a laugh. His family, his girlfriend's important to him. So I actually think that those sort of things he should be doing because that's part of what he is. And you look at a lot of brands now, and they're looking at people in isolation to self-shoot. And we'll go to content later, but you need to be comfortable to be able to just be you in front of a camera, and that's not easy to do.
Yeah. I do like TikTok. You mentioned a website, and I know that's also something that can be quite overwhelming, potentially could cost a lot of money. Any tips, suggestions on setting up the website?
Yeah, look, it doesn't need to be a really costly exercise. For this, we've used Squarespace. It's really easy to set up. You don't need much content on there. You just need to have a bio on you, good photos of you, what you're actually offering to a brand. And that might be as a public speaker, that might be just links to your sporting profile, that might be links to your Instagram accounts or whatever, your socials, but have something on there and have something to say on there.
Yeah, Squarespace, Vix, what's there's a couple of those platforms that are, I think, even free. Like if you don't want a domain name, they can be free. So
yeah, but I think you should be buying your own domain name. I think that's kind of,
and that's what, $12 or $50. I don't know how much.
It's not expensive.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean, it's an investment. It could bring you a lot more money in the future. So
yeah, and it might not come to anything, but then it's $12, a couple of coffees.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, I guess in terms of establishing a establishing a brand, just to kind of recap it. So come up with your mission statement / core values.
Yep.
Set up your profiles. Ideally get some professional photos taken.
Yep.
And set up the website.
Yep, website and also LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yeah.
Invest in the good profile. Take time to set it up properly. Keep it up to date. I think that's another thing that you really need to do. Don't have an outdated one. Don't have saying, "Oh, my last game was in 2019." Have it up to date. Be really focused on it too. And with LinkedIn, you can actually follow brands and see what they're doing. So stay up to date with any movement, and more importantly, with messaging.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I guess that brings us into brand alignment. You've got to find brands that are suitable to your lifestyle. And there are a lot of brands that are well suited to a water polo lifestyle.
So, sorry, Jimmy. You. Well, what I was going to say on this one here with our brands, something that I think it's a good tip. Sometimes when we think about sponsorships of attracting brands or creating partnerships, we kind of think, oh, it needs to be Nike or Under Armour or whatever. But I think a good tip is write down everything you use from morning to night. So, you use a toothpaste, whatever you eat.
Yep.
And it could be most random things. It could be your, like a local supermarket, buying food. You could be aligning with them. So I think a good tip is just literally write down everything you use. And I don't want to jump ahead, Jimmy, but like it's not always about cash. It's about product and even discounts.
It is.
So
And it's about finding things that help you, enable you to live the life that you want to. And we go back to that authenticity. If you start with the brands and the restaurants and the local businesses that you use, it's going to be more authentic because you can genuinely add that into your everyday life, and it's not difficult.
And we'll probably talk about this on the end. And I'm sorry, apologies for jumping ahead, but even things you don't think about, like real estate. You might not think real estate is something that you use or whatever, but a real estate agent wants to be part of a community. So if you're a part of a club that's, big community, they might want to feature you and throw a bit of cash at you to do a story or, promote them as well. So
definitely. And all real estate agents now have quite a big media presence in terms of they might have it on their website, they might have it on their socials. So if you can go and do a suburb profile or even just have a bit of content that you're making for them, it helps them in the community. And
even like, I know a common question I get is people ask me about followers. Oh, I only got 500 followers. It's actually not about that.
It's not about numbers. It's about engagement.
And to be honest, it's like you might have more influence with your 500 followers than someone that's got, 10,000 followers, because they're genuine followers, and your local community, e.g. your local real estate agent, wants access to those, your family members, your parents, your grandma or whatever that follow you on Instagram.
And also when we talk about knowing your worth, we'll talk about brands want longevity. They don't want a one-off campaign. They don't want you to come and just go, oh, cool, I want $500 for this. They want to work with you on a long-term basis. The longer you can work with a brand, the better you understand them and the better that they understand you. And that's critical in any relationship. Like we're talking about sponsorship, but any relationship should be built on that.
Yeah. What else on brand alignment?
Like you said, it's about thinking about what you do every day, what's involved in your training, nutrition, apparel, what brands would work seamlessly with it. And especially with water polo athletes, when they're in full training, when they're on tour, they live a pretty good life. And they're traveling a lot. They're always, luckily we follow the sun. So a lot of the training that we're doing, it's overseas. When we were juniors, you'd spend a lot of time in Croatia, Slovakia, Slovenia, these random countries in the middle of summer, and it's appealing to people back at home. And one thing that, and again, apologies jumping around, but one thing I know that Instagram and social media platforms love is travel. So I know we're not traveling at the moment, but like if you're posting pictures from these interesting places, and even like even again going back, if you're not Olympian or not national team, even traveling to Don Fraser Pool and Drummoyne and Fremantle, they're all unique places that some people wouldn't know. Like I know for us, every time I post to Don Fraser, I get so many people asking where these places. So it's not. And it goes back to that healthy lifestyle that brands want to align with. And that's probably something else that athletes probably need to be a little bit more conscious of, especially water polo athletes, is making sure that what you're putting on your social media is aligned with those values. Yeah. Right? And what I mean by that is making sure if you're talking about being happy, healthy and dedicated and all these type of things, your socials need to reflect that. You can't be talking in the morning about, oh, look at my amazing breakfast that I had this morning and this is how healthy I am. I've trained, I've done this. And then at night it's beers with the boys.
Yeah.
So you've got to be conscious of that. And I'm not saying that you can't have fun on your socials, but you need to be conscious of
we should probably definitely do a do's and do nots on the end of this, coming from brand point of view. And I think, like you should probably even put yourself in a brand's point of view. Like, you wouldn't want to see your sponsored athlete, running around, drunk on the side of the road, whatever. And water polo community is pretty tame, but, still.
Yeah, and you're right. So you need to be really conscious of that, and that's something you probably will do a do and don't. But I guess our tip for brand alignment is find the brands that you want to be associated with and don't be afraid to stalk them. So stalk LinkedIn, stalk the right, find the brand manager, find the person that's responsible for their sponsorships and target them, send them personalized message, ask them out for coffee, ask them, do your research, but then go to them with, okay, how can I work with you? If this is a brand that you truly believe in, then that should be easy for you to do. And then you got to start looking at how you can build that relationship on a long-term basis.
Who are the gatekeepers in terms of sponsorships?
Look, most big companies will have a brand manager or a sponsorship manager. With a lot of the big companies, they have someone dedicated to sponsorships. But most, at a minimum, anyone in the marketing team. So go into your marketing, look at your brand managers and your sponsorship managers. They're the people who I'd be targeting.
Cool. All right, next thing, know your worth.
Yeah, and look, know what you can bring to a brand, as well as what they can bring to you. So we're talking before about aligning with brands that that you're familiar with and you work with. But like you said, brands aren't looking for audience numbers and massive reach. They're looking for someone who not only shows their brand in a good light, but a person who'll fit in with the family. Like I said, they're looking for longevity, and never do anything for free.
Yep.
I think that's really critical. Know that what you're giving to a brand is worth something. So never do it for free. And now it might not necessarily be a payment. It might be for apparel. It might be for a service. It might be for whatever it might be. It might be for product. But don't be afraid to ask to be paid for something that you're doing. An accountant would never give you his service for nothing. So why wouldn't athlete?
You don't get a free haircut.
No, and if you did, it would be pretty ordinary, right?
Mate, a few things on this from personal experience. And I think now we're talking about it, it's not just individuals, it's also your teams and clubs can benefit from this. So personal experience, when it comes to know your worth, first of all, sponsorship is not a charity. So you also can't expect to get free stuff or product or services if you haven't got anything to offer. And I think sometimes initially sometimes the lines between sponsorships and charity get blurred a bit. So you got to understand that no business will just give away something for free. They need something back. So it's essentially, sponsorship is probably a wrong word. It should be really a partnership. Yep. The second thing I was going to say about this, it's you really need to write down what are your benefits you need to offer. So what can you offer, right? Now, you'd be surprised what you have. You could be something like, let's say if it's a sports store. Yep. I'm going to use Under Armour because they're the sponsor. Yep. And if they have a store, it could be maybe you rocking up at night and just talking about your training. Yep. So it could be just like a guest appearance. And I think I totally agree with you. You never give out anything for free. But if you have your website and if you have your email database, you might be negotiate a deal. It's like, hey, I'll come to your store. I'll talk to the people, but I want all the emails of people that came to the talk as well. And then how you can use that is your asset that you can use then for next sponsorship or promote yourself or whatever as well. Or reach out to those people and say, hey, I hope you enjoyed the talk. If you need anything else, please reach out to me. And this has happened to me before when people come up and say, hey, actually, I wouldn't mind if you did a talk at my workplace and we'll pay you. So all of a sudden you opens up all these opportunities, even though you didn't get cash, but you got assets, you got emails, and also you end up getting more opportunities.
And you're 100% right there. Like knowing what assets are that will make you valuable and having an email database that you actually own and have and people that want to hear from you, that's valuable to a client.
Yeah. Giving nothing for free, I think that's a good point we're up to. You happy with that? Know your worth? Do we need to touch on that?
Yeah, and I think it's just making sure that athletes have the confidence to realise what they're actually giving and to know that what I'm giving to a brand is valuable to them, but also making sure that, you're right, it's not treated as a charity. You want a long-term relationship. Look, we know from experience where sometimes someone in the club's gone out and gone, okay, we'll go out on a limb and I'll get a mate to give, let's say it's clothing, right?
Yep.
And in exchange for clothing, it might be, oh, can you just put on a bit of a show in the background while we're doing a corporate event?
Yep.
Right? And if the club puts on a really professional show, you've got water polo athletes going up and down, playing water polo as it should be, as the beautiful game that it is, then that's a nice backdrop to a corporate event, right? Whereas we know from experience that if people drag their feet, turn up late, they're kind of still putting the goals in when the event's halfway there, it creates a bad experience.
Yeah.
And that client didn't come back.
Yeah, and I think on that as well, apologies, I'm going to drop Under Armour again, but I remember Under Armour guys were talking about when Andy Murray came in to Melbourne before Australian Open to open up one of the stores. And, you know, he got paid to show up, open up a store, give a talk. But he hung around. He hung around not only to help clean up, he hung around to talk to the staff, not just media. And before he left, he said, is there anything else you want me to do? Now, he wasn't paid for that. He didn't have to do that. Yeah. But because of that, all the Under Armour sponsorship managers, everyone just speaks so highly of him. Yeah. And I think even though he hasn't played tennis, he's still sponsored by Under Armour. I think he's making a comeback, but because he's done such a great job. And I heard a story, so Djokovic does the same thing. Like, if you're asked to do something, and it could be maybe not such a fancy gig, give it your 100%. Yeah. Because you never know whose parent's going to be there. You don't know who else is going to be watching that or what's going to come out of it. So don't drag your feet. Or
what fans you can build from it. Like even totally. When you go into, like, you know, when you go into a school and you're going to talk to a school, right? And I was never an elite athlete, but when I was in shooter sport, we quite often went out to schools.
You were elite.
And these school kids wanted to hear your story. Right, and you'd take a few of the old caps, you'd take a few of the T-shirts there, and I remember kids would want me to sign their hats and shirts because all I do is spend the afternoon there, and I didn't want to ruin their hat by signing it. But that's the impact that you have on these kids. And then I went back. There was a particular school, and I went back a few times, went to their swimming carnival, and they were like, "Man, I saw you on." That was when ABC used to have the match of the National League match of the round on TV. He said, I'd never been interested in water polo, but about 10 of them went and watched it. The small things that you don't realise make a difference make a huge difference.
It's attitude, isn't it? Like anything. Just like you would do it for a game, you got to do it outside a pool as well.
Totally. And I guess that brings us to being confident about approaching brands. And this is a hard one for water polo athletes. Quite often athletes, water polo players talk themselves down. We're not one of the tier 1 sports. We're not a cricket. We're not a football. We're not an NRL. So I think athletes don't see themselves like that and struggle to actually approach brands. But if you establish your brand, if you know you know the brands that you want to align to, if you know your worth and you know what you can give to a brand, then suddenly when you're actually approaching brands, you've got something to go to them with. Now, most of these people are busy, so make it easy for them. And the benefit of most water polo players is they train of a morning, train of a night, uni during the day. Yes, some work during the day, so it's difficult for them, but make it easy for these brand managers. Try and find times that work for them. As I said, offer to buy them coffee. Do whatever you can to get in front of them. And when you do meet with them, bring a plan and a future suggestion list of the ways that you can integrate into that company. So you could take staff through a training session at lunchtime. And you know, if they've got, I know a couple of times, again with New South Wales Institute of Sport, they'd get corporates to come in into Homebush, and we'd just be in the water having shooting sessions with them. And they're amazed that you could just throw the ball and 8 out of 10s hit a wood in. And mind you, we're shooting from 4 metres, so they didn't realise that's...
Well...
but yeah, so you can do that kind of thing. You can run meditation classes. Don't let the relationship be a transactional one.
Wait, time out. Meditation classes?
Okay. I was thinking about this. So a lot of what we don't realise, and what a lot of the athletes don't realise, is the access that they have to quite high level training.
Yeah.
We don't take it for. I don't think anyone takes it for granted, but I don't realise that the training that they're doing and the processes that they go through are really beneficial to everyday athletes and to people at work and home. And yes, meditation is one of them. And
I was just laughing because I was picturing AJ trying to teach a meditation class.
yeah, but like if you go back a few years, Eddie Dennis, that's what he that's what he did. That was an interest of his. His was more the yoga, that's kind of side of it. But we did a lot of visualization with him, and if he pulled that into schools,
Corporate.
What's that?
In corporate world.
Yeah, corporate. And corporate is a really interesting area. A lot of the stuff that we talked about with Tim last week that he does with his teams, we get taught that at leadership courses. When we're talking about purpose, when we're talking about specific goal setting and breaking it down, they're the things that leaders are talking about in a corporate space. And usually things that 18, 19, 22, 24-year-old don't get access to. So when you've got and that's the thing with sport, you get access to these type of things and these leadership roles and leadership processes a lot earlier than other people do.
I think, so Jimmy, a couple of things. I was being a smartass, apologies. However, I think I actually disagree. I disagree the part that we do take it for granted in terms of our sport. You know, like for most average people, the thought of swimming, live alone treading water, live alone wrestling is huge. And I think that's probably advantage to water polo players or what makes our sport sexy and attractive to general punter. Now, a couple of things I was going to mention about being confident about approaching brands and kind of personal experience. You're going to get more no's than yeses. Yep. You're going to definitely get more no's. Like, that's a fact. That's like sales. And no's is okay. Like, getting a no is totally fine. Actually, the worst thing you want to get is, oh, maybe we'll get back to you. That's the worst answer you want to get. You want to get a strong yes or strong no.
Yep.
Now, if you send, 100 proposals to 100 different sponsorships or whatever, and we'll talk about proposals in a sec. However, you only need to get 2.
Yeah.
And you're sweet. So that's 2%. So you're chasing 2%. So don't be scared to get no. And it's fine. Like, it's nothing bad's going to happen if someone says no. The last thing I was going to say about corporates as well, like, and again, a lot of the places have, parents that have kids that play water polo in high school and whatever. So you might potentially offer a training session for your kids, which, like if you're at a high level, and, it doesn't have to be Olympian level. Like, it could be National League, it could be just state or whatever. Like, you can still be a great coach and offer some tips for the high school kid player. So you almost just need to be a little bit creative in how you put in a proposal, what you can offer. And I think also another tip, and we'll talk about proposals, but you need to tweak your proposals for different people as well. So what you ask, what you pitch to someone.
Yeah, and that goes back to doing your research. It's the same in anything, isn't it? So we talked before about stalking people on LinkedIn, but also just Googling brands. Yeah, finding out what their current messaging is and how you can align with it.
What their current sponsors.
Yeah, what athletes they kind of work with, what content they make, what they do. It's all key. The easier you can make someone else's job, the better.
So on that leads us nicely to content creation or content harvesting, whatever you want to call it. What's up with that?
Look, it's critical now. Anything that an ambassador does with a client, content needs to be made from it. And now content can be social, content can be a corporate video that they send around into the office. But any content that you make needs to add value to your community. It needs to go back to those core values, back to those core brands, and adds value to the community. Like we say with this podcast, anything we try to do, we try to add a little bit of value. Every content piece that you make, you should be making it. It should be adding value.
So it could be a photo, a video, I mean, it could be a podcast. We're doing a podcast, but that's maybe a little bit too hectic. But
Yeah, we don't want competition for us.
That might be hard to knock us off.
But look, the thing for any content, any good content, the key should be storytelling.
Yeah.
It's got to tell a story, right? And the best thing to any story is it needs to have emotion in it.
Yeah.
Right? And it can be any emotion, but any good story needs to have emotion in it.
I put money on it. If any athlete, any water polo athlete that's listening to this right now, if you tomorrow put your phone on and you record what time you wake up, what you have for breakfast, what are you doing, what training you're doing. If you kind of documented your day, your engagements, likes, comments will go through the roof because people love reality TV.
Yeah, and the big thing here is don't get put off by your close mates taking the piss out of you.
Yeah, that's
and
a
I
big
think
one.
that's really got to be key. Quite often, we'll put up, we as a collective, we put up one thing, we cop shit from our mates, and then don't do anything anymore.
And actually, I want to make a massive point of that. Don't cut down your mates about that. It's nothing worse. And it's fine to have a bit of banter. I love it. We do it all the time. But be more encouraging, like be more positive, because it's not going to help anyone, you taking the piss and just, like making smart ass comments. And look, if you're doing, I'm not saying have banter, it's fine, but maybe do it, call them up and do it. Don't put it on the comments. Don't write smart ass comments on there. Like,
and that's
unless it's positive.
Unless it's positive. And we should be, anything that we do, we should be trying to support each other and push each other out. And I guess that's what, thankfully, everything that we've done here, people have been really supportive of it.
Yeah.
Behind our backs, they're probably taking the piss. But
and thanks for that, for people that are listening. Thanks for your support, PS. Leave a comment, 5 stars.
Leave a comment, something good.
Subscribe.
We've got 11 ratings so far.
We got 11.
Yeah.
Nice.
But so just on creating content, I'm going to say learn to edit videos and take good photos. Don't be daunted by that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Good is better than perfect any day of the week.
Yeah. Better beats perfect. And one thing I'll add to that, like if you don't practice, if you don't do it, you'll never get good.
Yep.
And you want to get to the stage when you look 100 photos back or videos back and you go, oh, that was rubbish. But if you're waiting to do that perfect, you're never going to nail it. You're just never going to get better. Just like anything, like water polo, related to sport. Like if you wait to nail your, shot and you don't practice it, well,
you don't. And the only way to get better on it is by practicing, is by shooting things, editing it. And when we're talking about editing videos, it doesn't have to be on your high-end software. It can be on your phone. It can be, look, great if you're at uni and you've got access to the Adobe suite, or somehow you've got an Avid or something like that. But really, it can be anything.
Another tip on this is, like, you might have buddies that are starting to, photography or video content, and you might want to hit them up as well. And, like uni students that are looking to, edit. So
definitely. Like, look, again, I know with my work, we've got a lot of young kids who, coming straight out of uni, all they want to do is be editing, and they want the practice on it. And when they're at work, they're not really doing much of it because they're literally pulling media in and out. But they want challenges. They want to work with people. So again, don't be afraid to ask them. And again, find that value exchange. Don't expect them to do it for free, but work out ways that you can work together.
Well, that could be a sponsor, right? So having someone that's going to look after your content. So.
Yeah, totally. And they get the experience of doing it. They get to build up their profile. You
get to promote them. Yep. So, they might throw a freebie for you, but if you get them a couple of clients, it kind of makes it worthwhile for them.
Yep. Yeah. And why this is important is because brands right now don't have the money that they probably had a few years ago, right? So they're not spending, they need to make more content. Every brand now needs to make content to be active in marketing. There's no way about that at the moment. Content is king across everything. but they don't necessarily have the budget to be able to do that. So if you can go to them and solve a problem for them, and that's all when we're talking about proposals, it's finding the problem that they have and giving them a solution to it.
Yeah, totally.
That's what it comes down to.
I'm just thinking this could be the worst idea ever, but for those that are listening and you want to give it a crack, like if you do create something on your social and put it up, tag us in on our Instagram and we'll share it, or I don't even know how to do it, but we'll try to help you out with our sort of audience. Do we have many followers? I know it's not about followers.
We've got a few. It's about engagement. We've got a lot of engagement.
But anyway, like tag us in and we can, if you like, we can give you some feedback on it. I mean, whatever you do, it's going to be good. Some things going to be better than nothing. It's funny, like I think about content and you know, like through my businesses and, you know, like I got a bit of a following on my own Instagram account, my personal one. And the people always ask me, oh, how did you do it? Or what's the secret? And it's like, well, I don't know the secret. But one thing I do know, if you do nothing about it, nothing will happen. So you got to, if you want to attract sponsorships, brands, and you're almost building your own portfolio, you know, like.
That's exactly what you're doing.
So it's like you got to pump it out.
Yep.
Oh, I said it. I'll let Jimmy looks after Instagram anyway, but tag us in and we'll reshare it and give you some love.
Am I meant to be looking after Instagram?
Is anyone looking after Instagram?
Last point. Never undersell the career of an athlete.
Yeah, Hanji. Yeah.
I don't think we can put an exclamation next to this enough. It's just so imperative. People love the story of an athlete.
And you said it so well. Like water polo is so good. We like everywhere around the world. It's so good. Like swimming pools, beaches, tan.
It's
like just
it's fit looking guys and girls. It's always played in summer. It's outside. It's like
pina coladas. Well, we're not promoting alcohol, but you're not in Hawaii. But I know, I was just thinking of a pina colada song. All I had in my head was a pina colada song. Like when you were saying, I was getting so excited then. I was thinking about tanning and beach and pina coladas.
Back to
back to the program.
So never undersell the career of an athlete. So often you hear athletes and we do big shoots with a lot of athletes, and what we love is hearing athlete stories. And every single athlete has an amazing story.
Oh, totally.
Right? Like you look at, hopefully we get Joe on the next couple of weeks, and I want to hear how bloke from Auckland who looked like he could
Auckland, Mount Maunganui, like a tiny little town in the middle of North Island, not even Auckland.
And I'm guessing that's probably rugby country, right?
Yeah.
Like how did he get into water polo? How has he gone from
the tiny town in New Zealand to play for one of the best clubs in the world?
Best club side in the world. Yeah. Go to an Olympics for what an incredible story.
And you're right, everyone's got a story. Again, I'll go back to, you don't have to be Olympian. I mean, you look at, you and I didn't go to the Olympics, but we can tell a good story about National League trips and, you know, overseas trips that we did. So.
Yeah, and every story, the stories that resonate are the emotional ones.
Yeah.
And every athlete can find that. But that it doesn't have to be, you know. But I guess if anyone, the athletes that are actually making it through to an Olympics, we're talking about less than 1% of the population. Yeah. That's pretty freaking special, right? And to get to that, the sacrifices that you make, the support people that are there, even when you're sort of thinking about that, you start thinking about the brands that want to align with that. So when you're talking about the families of support, you look at the P&Os, you look at the P&G. Sorry.
Are we going to cruise now? Actually, can you not swear? We're gonna get done by Apple. Steve Jobs is not gonna like.
Sorry, mate. Back to our brand values. But through each of those, there's a different story. And now we've talked a lot about athletes, but clubs have the same thing.
Yeah.
And local clubs, and that's why why we're so passionate about club water polo, is because the clubs have such an important part of a lot of different communities, like obviously with Balmain, but I grew up in near Drummoyne.
Yeah, good call.
Near Drummoyne.
Russell
Lee, and a lot of very, very good family friends are part of the Drummoyne community, but that is the Drummoyne water polo community. You look at the West community. You look at I'm going to say Sydney Uni, but where are they from?
Newtown. Is it Newtown? Newtown Jets.
How many of them actually grow up there?
That's true. One thing I was going to say on that though, like something that I guess I'm throwing out a challenge to, like athletes can do with help from clubs, but clubs need help from athletes.
Yeah, and probably should have said this at the top. And for any sport to grow, it's the athletes that you follow, right? When next Thursday night, when the NRL starts, yeah, you like watching your club sides play, but you want to see the superstars of the game play, right? And that's what we as a sport need to be doing. We need to be building up our athletes to be the superstars that they are. We should be promoting them. We should be like, we should have had Gav Woods on a poster in the middle of Darling Street. Richie Campbell should be on billboards in Newcastle for like.
Yeah, no, I think I'll tell you a bit of a beef. One of my beef. No, I think about sponsorship. One of our biggest beefs in Australian National League is when cap sponsors.
Yep.
There's nothing more annoying, and I can't believe he's still doing it. And it's pain in the ass for athletes to go, it's usually their family doing it anyway. And then as a fan, sitting down, listening to about 1,000 different sponsors, like the sponsor gets nothing out of it. Athlete is just awkward. Just one sponsor.
Yeah, look, we know why clubs do it. They do it because first of all, actually, it does make athletes accountable to actually go and find someone to realise that it does cost a lot to play. Secondly, it does bring in a little bit of money.
Yeah,
right?
but
and I know what you're saying, and I think that the club would be better off spent working on one big sponsor.
We got a marketing guy here and we got a strength conditioning coach here. For me, it's like, let athletes concentrate on getting fit and ready to play. Let clubs attract one big sponsor. So when I'm watching a game, I want to see a Australian or whatever Balmain Tigers sponsored by Water Polo Fit, and then I want Water Polo Fit all over the place, and I want to see in a program. I want to see, as you said, my superstar player holding a Water Polo Fit whatever T-shirt and telling me about his trip in Europe, whatever. One sponsor. So like, and I don't know. Maybe I'm delusional, but I feel like if you know the number you need to raise, so it's usually $500 times 15, whatever, more, whatever. Like that's the figure, and you get your branding all over the pool, all the players. We used to have that. You remember Tigers used to sponsor us? We used to get us tats on our chest, like
I used to draw them on.
Yeah,
remember
it was
Nick
mad.
and Dean trying to get through that?
I don't remember. I couldn't spell, so I'm like,
well, you never knew where to start.
Oh, it was the worst.
So you'd be like, they'd have the S under your arm or something like that. Newman was the best at putting it on.
It was
but
good.
Back to your point, you are right. From a marketing perspective, one bigger is better than lots of small, right? And then you can really focus on that. And that really is what clubs should be trying to do. They should be going after what I think is ideally a couple of big partners, and then you should almost have team sponsors. And that shouldn't stop at National League, AWL, whatever it's now called. And that should go right the way down to your under-12s teams. That's what rugby league has always done. When I used to play junior rugby league, we were sponsored by Hobbs Brothers or Lucy Concrete. And if you do that, then make it clear of what the expectations are with athletes for that client.
And then
they are a client. It's a default to client, but they are brands and they're sponsors. And then you can start saying, okay, well, this is what I want the athletes to do. And it can be as simple as just a weekly check-in. Getting that, the key part is actually involving that sponsor in more parts of the club.
Yeah.
Right? Get them in, work with them, get them to every home game. Make sure that every sponsor is at least invited to every home game.
Totally.
Has tickets, to that game that has
Have the VIP area on your game.
Do you know what? We down at Dorney, we often have that VIP section, but I don't think, personally, I don't think you actually need to isolate them there.
Yeah.
Just make sure that the people behind the running the sausage know who they are.
Yeah.
Right? So they come and think, oh, mate, thanks for your support. Here's
totally.
here's your sausage sandwich and here's your beer or your champagne. And make sure people are speaking to them and engaging them in it. Chances are they're invested in the club anyway from a personal perspective, but don't just take their money and do nothing.
Nah, totally. And look, I think reality is it's going to be much harder to get cash next couple of years probably. So I think people are listening to, whether you're an athlete or whether you're someone that's in charge of the club, you need to get a little bit creative of what you want. And I guess to review, for me, the key point is not always look for cash, even though cash is cash, but it could be something like, like if it's, let's say, barbecue sausages, get free sausages. Approach your local butcher and get free kit.
But go one step further. Go to your local IGA. And even, you know what? Sydney clubs work together.
Yeah.
Go to Coles, go to Woolies, go to IGA and go, do you know what? Between the 6 of the 5 clubs, if we can get a sponsorship from Woolies, what we'll do is we'll actually buy all our produce from the local one, right? But the 6 clubs will all put Woolworths wherever you need to do it. So attracting that local level, because local is absolutely critical at the moment. In terms of marketing, local is everything, right? You look at what Coles and Woolies are doing. They're now having specialist stores that stock produce that suits that area. Local is key, and that's what we do well.
Who's Curtis Stone with?
Coles.
Get him on there. Get him behind a barbie.
How do you reckon he'd go behind the barbie?
He got right, I reckon. He seems to be good. Hand in the kitchen.
He might go a bit fancy.
You know who we should get? George Carbonavas.
He's free.
Yes.
He's free at the moment.
Well done. Like, he'd be a passionate supporter for sure. Isn't he bankrupt? Isn't he broke?
Yeah, you can still get behind the barbecue.
Yeah, good tzatziki, I reckon. He'll go all right in tzatziki.
Bring the food truck down. But I guess the one positive thing about water polo at the moment, so not one, there's lots of positive things, but in terms of from a marketing perspective, there are some very, very, very good things happening. The Australian Youth Carnival up at Brisbane.
Yeah.
I froth on that. I think it's an amazing initiative. You've got this massive group of athletes that are so engaged. Why aren't clubs promoting that? Why aren't clubs going to brands and going, look, over this 2-week period, we've got 6 teams playing. They've got a national audience. There's a certain amount of games that are actually filmed and broadcast on OVO. Like the games, Water Polo Australia is actually giving a lot of access and a lot of opportunities to grow on. So I think clubs need to build on that and get there.
I like what you said about clubs actually working together, right? Like, because, it's strength in numbers as well. Like, we're competing against each other and we all, competitors, but we can work together in some respect, and especially clubs that are kind of close together. And, like it's almost, you just have to be a little bit more creative and do something a little bit different, Yeah,
you do. And as soon as the clubs start working together, if they're working together on a sponsorship level, they're going to work together on ways to promote the game. And you look at ways that we're going to use Drummoyne and Balmain as an example, because the 2 pools, you can see each other. Right? Imagine before their home games, before the Drummoyne Balmain derbies in National League, you had a couple of players from each team go to all the local schools.
Yeah.
Birchgrove Public, St Mark's, Drummoyne Public, Rozelle, Orange Grove, and promoted the game.
Oh, I'd be mad.
Have a junior game before the game, and then so you'd have a sub-junior game with kids from those different schools playing. Drummoyne's got a phenomenal primary school program. The amount of kids that come to Balmain from Birchgrove is phenomenal. Have a Birchgrove versus Drummoyne Public, whatever it is. Have that. Have your 18s game. Have your National League game. I can guarantee both pools would be packed.
And not only that, you can have a coaching clinic beforehand with both teams, you know, a couple of players just going to the coaching clinic, have a game. And then if you have this packed crowds, well, then you're going to have sponsors approaching you because they're going to be like, hey, hold on, there's a local crowd here. Every kid's got a parent there.
Yeah, of course.
Like, maybe I want my branding out there. Maybe I want my local real estate agent branding out there. So it's like pretty hard. I mean,
but you try and tell me if we did that, as if Cobden and Hayson wouldn't be right all over it.
oh, 100%. 100%. Like, I think in many ways it's so easy. And I think the problem, and this is going to sound negative, we sometimes, and I'm generally speaking for clubs that I've been involved with, but like, we get so stuck in old school ways and technology's changed, everything's changed. And it's like, yeah, it might have worked 10 years ago, but it's time to adapt and change and just think outside the box a bit. And I mean, like, and even if, you know, even if you're just doing it just for the players, like, it just makes so much sense to have every game packed with a crowd, just with school kids, you know, like, I mean, that's why part of the reason why 2020 cricket did well, because they made it so good for kids. And it's not so much about a cricket, it's what goes around the game. So it's like,
yeah, and Rowie touched on a few weeks ago.
yeah.
She said if you make carnivals out of the game, if you have music before the game, during in
That's
between
easy.
quarters, like, it's so easy.
Again,
to
get
do.
a local DJ to do it for free, and in return, or whatever, like a couple of bucks at a door entry, like you can get $1 from each ticket.
Yeah,
You know, like,
it's not hard to do. It just, you know, it just needs a bit of thought and a bit of planning to it. And look, we know that they're looking at changes to National League, the league, and I hope they take these things into account. I hope they figure that it's the local rivalries that do drive the big numbers, but across in terms of getting locals involved in it.
so Jimmy, I'm going to throw you under a bus a little bit. And when I say what I mean by that is, like, I think obviously your wealth of knowledge when it comes to marketing, you've been around the block, you've been in the industry for a long time. Would you be open to help people from athletes to clubs and kind of do a bit of consulting and, you know,
Yeah,
if
of
they
course.
throw a bit of cash at you and
Of course.
to do it. So I think Jimmy doesn't know about this. So this is all live. But yeah, if you go on our website, waterpolo.fit.
.fit.
Oh my God. Yeah, and just go in contacts, and Jimmy looks after Instagram and emails. Jimmy looks after everything, really.
that's the part that's throwing me under the bus.
Um,
No, but look, we know we have a beautiful product.
yeah.
We know water polo is an amazing game, and you linked it to Big Bash before. But our game goes for an hour each. So you can get women's game, men's game in 3 hours, done by 8 o'clock. If you have it at any of the local pools, you can get a bit of dinner there, get a bit of entertainment. And you know what? We should have the athletes meeting people afterwards.
Yeah, I reckon Jimmy Club should contact you and athletes should contact you. And let's just wrap it up and I think we covered a lot, but I just want to maybe finish with, I guess, what people can do tomorrow and even, or whenever they listen to this pod, what can they do straight away to start building a brand and potentially, you know, we can set them a challenge to get a sponsorship. And when I say sponsorship, partnership, doesn't have to be money. It could be just product. It could be discount card, whatever. So I guess what would be what could I do straight away to start building my portfolio and make myself sponsorable? Is that a word? Sponsorable?
Yeah, sponsorable. One is go straight to yourself. Work out your purpose. Put together your mission statement. Right.
Yep. Would you put it in your profile or just in your own private?
Look, for LinkedIn, yeah, definitely. I'd
Yeah.
make it really clear. And even on your descriptions, I'd make it really clear as to this is who I am and this is what you get for it, right? In that, I'd make sure that everything that you can offer to a brand, you start putting in there and set up. So LinkedIn, number one, once you've actually worked out what your purpose is.
Yeah.
Number two is make sure that if you have a website, have that updated. Make sure everything is up to date. And three, start working out what brands you want to align to and start doing your research on them. Start trying to work out what what you can do with those brands, and then start approaching them.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I imagine everyone's got a LinkedIn account. If you don't, set it up. Pretty easy. I imagine everyone's got Instagram account. Clean it up a bit. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Like if you got pictures of you blind or whatever, drunk or inappropriate, deleting them straight away. Like I know we sound like we're 100 years old, but yeah, get rid of them. If you want to attract sponsorships or if you want to attract brands or partnerships, you need to kind of clean up your gram or your LinkedIn.
Yeah, fine to have a sense of humour, encouraged to have a personality. Brands don't want just everyone being vanilla, but don't go over the line. Know where the line is.
Squarespace, log in, set it up, pretty easy to use. Doesn't have to be fancy. Could be one page just about you, bit of a blog. Oh, actually on that I also just suggest set up the email collecting thing.
Yep.
So you can
data capture is
data
important.
capture on that as well. When you go to waterpolo.fit, you can also subscribe to a newsletter that goes out weekly. What else?
I think they're the main things.
Yeah.
Know your brand. Have that brand present.
Yep.
So have it online. Have it where people can actually access it, and know that people aren't going to come to you. You need to go to them. You need to show the initiative. You can't just sit there and wait for the phone to ring, wait for an email to ping in. You need to be, I was going to say aggressive, but you need to be active in it. You need to be proactive in it. If this is something you want to do, if you want to be a professional athlete that gets sponsored to do it, you need to be active.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think I encourage people to reach out to you. And I just want to see, I guess, if people find this interesting and is this something they want to do to kind of attract sponsors so they can spend more time on recovery, training, not stress about financial pressures, having a job or whatever, please send us an email. It can be, whatever. I think, Jimmy, you're the man for a bit of a consulting gig, and even for me, it's, getting on a Zoom call for 20 minutes or something to kind of brainstorm, see where you're at. I'm sure we can work something out. But it also, I guess, inspires you and me to put something on a blog as well.
Yeah, and we've said all this, which has been a little bit serious, but have fun with it.
Oh, totally.
This should be fun. This shouldn't be stressful. This should just be, this is part of what I do as an athlete. This is how I enjoy it and have fun. Well,
I think, we spoke about it. I'm happy to be authentic about this and transparent. We're gonna get a sponsor for the pod, and when we come up with a proposal, I'm happy to share it. If you're happy to share it to the audience to see what we've done, and if you need help with the proposals as well, again, reach out. But we're gonna get a sponsorship for a pod, so you can check it out, see how we done it, and again, transparent. We're not going to ask for money, but we're just going to ask for some beers and feed. So to start off, and if you're a sponsor listening, reach out to Jimmy as well. Sweet, Jimmy. I think that was good. I'm looking forward to see what the reaction is. A bit of a left field pod, but I think it definitely helps.
We know this probably won't be of interest to all of our listeners, but hopefully, like we said, big numbers, it's about engagement.
Yeah, totally.
Everyone, thanks for listening to us dribble on. Hope you enjoyed the podcast episode and learned more about athlete or personal branding. Email us at james@waterpolo.fit if you have any questions, ideas, disagree with us, want any info on specifics, or just to say hi. You can find show notes at waterpolo.fit. See you next time.
Bye.